This video is the beginner's guide to your first trust in Texas. And really, more specifically, it is what you need to know before you tackle creating your first trust in Texas. First, you need to decide why you even want a trust. I mean, a trust is just a legal tool, and so you need to know what it is you're trying to accomplish with that trust before you accomplish getting a trust. Imagine this. Imagine you're at home and you're watching TV for some drug, and there are millions of them, and you see some ad on TV, and then you go to your doctor's office and you say, "Hey doc, I want drug X." Well, the doctor's gonna look at you and say, "Hey, can we start by checking you out and seeing what's going on with you before we start recommending particular tools?" Well, it's kind of like that with trusts. It's weird to me when a client comes in and say, "I want this particular drug," i.e., "I want this kind of trust." Like, no, that's not the way it works. What we want you to do is say, "Here's what I need to accomplish. Here are my desires." And then we go, here's the kind of thing that you want. So again, the first step is just, what are you trying to accomplish with this trust? The second thing is, you really need to know just basically what a trust is. And so a trust is basically like a company. It's not a company, but it's kind of like a company. It's a legal fiction, and it is this legal relationship that is managed by a trust agreement. A trust agreement is what your lawyer writes up for you, and it's kind of like how a company has bylaws. Your trust agreement is kind of like the bylaws for your trust. And so you kind of need to have that in mind. When I go to meet with a lawyer and he sets up a trust, what he's really doing is writing out the terms of your trust agreement. And knowing that, you kind of need to know that there are two main flavors of trusts, at least here in Texas. We have irrevocable trusts on the one hand, and we have revocable trusts on the other. Now, I don't want to talk a whole lot about irrevocable trusts because they're really only used in special circumstances, like in certain blended families, when we're dealing with special needs, or when we're dealing with our really high net worth clients. But the vast majority of trusts in Texas are revocable trusts, sometimes called revocable living trust. And that's kind of the normal type of trust. So you might go into, if you're doing your first trust, you might kind of go into it with the mindset that I'm probably doing a revocable living trust. And the way I like to think of a revocable living trust is sort of doing what a last will and testament does, but just kind of in a better way. So if you come into it with that mindset that I'm almost doing like what a will does, but just in a better way, you'll have the kind of the right mindset when you meet with your lawyer to discuss the terms of your trust agreement. And lastly, before you get started on your trust, you need to have a loose idea of some of your preferences for your trust. So specifically, you kind of need to know, okay, if I pass away, who do I want to get what assets? You kind of need to know, how do I want them to get it? In other words, if you have little kids, you probably don't want to give them a lump sum share. You want to give them a little bit over time or things like that. So kind of have that in mind. How do I want those beneficiaries to get whatever it is? And then you kind of need to have in mind who you want to handle the doling out of those assets, which is called the trustee. So it would be really helpful when you come into the lawyer's office to get started on your trust if you would have in mind, hey, here's the group of people that I might consider as capable of handling the doling out of my assets when I pass away, because your attorney's probably going to want a primary choice and then also some alternates. So to just summarize in this last bit, what I'm saying is that you need to have in mind who the beneficiaries are, i.e., who gets it all when you pass away, how those beneficiaries get it, i.e., do they get it in some lump sum, or would you consider some other distribution? Like, what would it be in your dream world about how they get it? And then lastly, who will be handling that doling out of assets, which is the trustee. So you should have some alternates in mind, and so when you go into the attorney, you can kind of talk about those different alternates. Now, if you come to your lawyer's office ready to create your trust with just those things in mind, that attorney is going to think you're a rock star. You haven't done all the research in the world where it's like you got it all figured out and you just Googled your heart's desire. You haven't gone overboard, but also you're not just like, I don't know. I don't really care what happens when I die. We want you somewhere in the middle where it's like, you're tuned in, you understand the basic concepts, but you're a little bit open-minded so that we can actually do our job and give you some counsel as to, what would be the right choice for you. So I hope you found this video helpful. It's really just a basic video to kind of get you in the right mindset before you do your first trust in Texas.